Okay, our topic today is sugar management. So let's dig in. Today, we're going to answer some important questions. How have we as humans managed sugar in recent history? Why is it important for cooks and bakers to manage sugar? Why is it important for us as individuals to manage sugar? And we'll also have a crash course with nutrition labels. We'll make them easier to understand. This is our roadmap for today. Okay, before we move on to sugar's history, please let me share just a little bit of my professional history. I've been an educator since 2006 and a registered dietitian since 2016. This is a second career for me, and I love what I do. And Danielle talked about some of the things I do here at Altman Orville Hospital, where I'm coming to you virtually from the nutrition office today. Okay, if our group was meeting in person, I would put this slide up and I would turn to the audience and ask who can identify what this is. And we may be lucky if one or two people can come up with the correct answer, which is sugar cane. Okay, some people might say bamboo, some people might say a stick, but what we're looking at here is sugar cane. This is what it looks like when it's grown as a crop, okay? So keep this picture in your mind. We may come back to it later in the discussion. Okay, briefly, we'll just go over some of the history that's involved with sugar. And we have records that as early in the past as 10,000 years ago, we as humans were growing sugar cane and people generally chewed it raw. That was how people were getting the sugar out of the sugar cane at that time. But then 1700 years ago, we had an invention, a development that changed all that. We figured out how to crystallize sugar. That doesn't seem like a big deal to us today because sugar packets are everywhere, you know, but to be able to crystallize sugar was a big change because it let us trade, it let us store sugar, kind of paved the way for what came next. 550 years ago, there was a major international operation that was moving sugar all across the globe. This made sugar more readily available for a lot of people that maybe didn't have that sugar in the past. And then 275 years ago, scientists figured out that, hey, we can get sugar from sugar beets. It doesn't have to be from sugar cane. So we're finding these alternate sources of sugar that people can use. Okay, I'm sure most people are familiar with high fructose corn syrup. That name rings a bell. This is something that was developed by scientists 63 years ago. Okay, when it was first developed, it wasn't in as many food products as we find today. One of the reasons that happened, if you take a look, 43 years ago, we increased taxes on sugar that we brought into this country. Other countries would grow sugar and then we would buy it and bring it into this country. When we raised the taxes on that, we effectively slowed down the amount of sugar we were getting from other countries, and it left us to look within our borders and say, what is the cheapest form of sugar that we can get a hold of? And you guys probably know the answer to this. It happens to be high fructose corn syrup is the cheapest source of sugar that we have access to in this country. And that's some of the reasoning why high fructose corn syrup has become, you can find it in a lot of different products nowadays. All right, that's enough history. Sugar absolutely has some important properties that cooks and bakers take advantage of. So I'll share some of these with you here so you can understand them better. First, it acts as a preservative. Sugar will act as a preservative. It preserves fruits and berries. It inhibits microorganisms from growing in those products. That's really important for our food supply. Number two, sugar keeps baked goods soft and moist. This is important too. It's important for the texture of the foods. The bonds between sugar and water, they chemically lock together, so it locks that water into the product. Sugar is able to do that. Number three, sugar is also able to help batters rise during baking. Imagine that you've just put all the ingredients together in a bowl and you start to stir up your batter. What you're doing is you're moving around the sugar crystals in that product. Sugar crystals they're sharp on the edges. It's cutting little pockets into that batter. When you put it into the oven, then those little air pockets that you've created expand. Air will expand as it heats, and it helps with the rising of these products. And for some products, that's extremely important. Sugar also enhances flavor. This is like a no-brainer. It can boost flavors that are already present, and it will also decrease bitterness. Anybody in the audience who is a coffee drinker can attest to this, that when you put the sugar in the coffee, it does cut the bitterness drastically. Okay. Sugar can deepen the color in a product. Browning, that they would call it caramelization. Those are the chemical reactions that under heat darken the colors of the product. It can make it more appetizing to the eye. And sugar is also able to add crunch. If you think about, your batter that you've got in the oven, there's a surface to it. And across the surface, there's sugar and water. You remember how they're chemically bonded? We talked about that before. When the product heats up, that surface, that crust on the outside, it loses its water to the rest of the oven. But what stays behind? It's the sugar. And that's how, I always think of a muffin when I'm describing this, but it leaves you with that top part that's crunchy, and it's got a sweetness to it. So yeah, adds crunch. Okay. So we're going to switch gears from the culinary side of things and talk a little bit about the health impact that sugar has on us as individuals. Now, I have a whole bunch listed here in this table. A lot of these have some research behind them. Some of these are more common sense than anything. The connection between sugar and tooth decay. That's something our dentists have been telling us for years. So that's not shocking. So look at I'll use my pointer here and make this easier to see. So this very first box, it talks about causes glucose levels to spike and plummet. That's your blood sugar, okay? When we talk about a blood sugar crash in your body, that's the same chemical response as a fight or flight, excuse me. So we're talking about unexplained anxiousness, irritability, and shakiness. Okay? Very similar symptoms. Let's jump down to accelerates aging. So they found that sugar, remember how it can chemically bond with water, and that was important for our baked goods. Sugar will also chemically bond to proteins in your skin. So then your skin loses its elasticity. And that's kind of the definition of aging when you think about your skin, losing your elasticity. I'll point out another one here. So over on the right-hand column, this describes affects cognition in children. So this was an interesting case study that I'll share with you. New York City schools, they reduced the sugar in their lunches and breakfasts from one year to the next, and then their academic ranking rose 15%. I thought that was a pretty startling difference from one year to the next. And here's another one that goes along with kids. So takes the place of important nutrients. Kids tend to consume the most sugar, but they've got the highest need for those nutrients. So just another thing to keep in mind here when it comes to the health impact. Okay, we're going to move on. We can't discuss sugar management without spending some time on fiber. This is really important. So fiber is Mother Nature's antidote for sugar. I want you to think back to the picture of sugar cane that I started this presentation with. Plenty of fiber. It's a stick, right? So what does fiber do for you? We'll explore this a little bit. So first, fiber is going to make you feel full faster. Okay? And it does that using the two different types of fiber. Let me just discuss it briefly here. It's soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. So when I talk about soluble fiber, the picture that comes into my mind is oatmeal. I want you to pretend that you made oatmeal at home, and then you got busy doing something, and it's been hours and you come back and you go, oh my gosh, I left that oatmeal sitting in the microwave or wherever. So you get it out, and what is that oatmeal going to look like? I mean, you probably can't even hardly get a spoon into it. It's going to form a gel, isn't it? And you can see here, that's what the soluble fiber does in your body. It forms a sticky gel. And the importance is that it will delay the food emptying out of your stomach, and that can help you feel full faster. Okay. Soluble is a way, it only means that it can be dissolved in water. That's what the soluble part means. When I talk about insoluble fiber, this is fiber that does not dissolve in water. I always think of celery strings. You can eat celery strings. They're just going to move right through your body and you're not going to break them down at all. But that's fine. You know, it still does an important job in your body. And that job is moving food through your intestine faster. That's another part of helping you feel full faster. Okay, so whether the fiber dissolves in water or doesn't, they're both important. Okay, now the connection between fiber and cholesterol. So fiber is able to lower your blood cholesterol. When I work with clients who are trying to get a grip on their high cholesterol, you know, from their blood work, and their doctors talk to them about it, and they want to make some changes, I let them know that fiber is one of the most important and easiest ways that you can make a difference when it comes to your blood cholesterol. So let's figure out why that would be. I'm going to talk about bile acids. This is the first time I've mentioned them here in this presentation. I just want you to know that that's part of your digestion. Okay, a bile acid, it helps your body digest the way that it's supposed to. So what fiber does in your digestive tract, it draws out bile acids from your body. Okay, it's really important that it does that, because then your body has to make new bile acids. What does your body make bile acids out of? Cholesterol. So it takes some of the cholesterol that's already in your body and it uses it for something, you know, and that helps remove it from your bloodstream. So this is the process that's going on that helps fiber reduce your blood cholesterol. Okay, number 3, fiber is also able to deliver nutrients farther down your digestive tract. Well, who are we delivering nutrients to in your digestive tract? You have millions, billions, trillions of organisms that live inside your digestive tract, and they all do really important jobs for you. So those nutrients that are getting delivered by fiber farther down your intestine is to feed those bacteria that you need. You need them for health. You need them for normal function. So you are supporting your microbiota, you know, that live in your gut with the fiber that you eat. Okay, so I've got 2 nutrition labels that we've got stacked side by side here. We're not going to compare apples to oranges. We're going to compare oranges to orange juice. We're comparing a whole fruit to the juice. Okay, and let's see what the difference might be. So between the whole fruit and the juice, the calories are very similar. Okay, and as you go down this chart, that's the pattern you're going to see. The calories are very similar, the vitamins are very similar, the amount of carbs, even the sugar. But where it's different is at the very bottom. It talks about dietary fiber. This is the fundamental difference between a whole fruit and the juice that you would drink. Okay. In this case, the fresh orange, the whole fruit, has 12 times more fiber. Okay. That means it's 12 times better able to help you feel full faster, 12 times better able to lower your blood cholesterol, and it's also 12 times better at feeding those natural critters that live inside your body that you need. So, and it makes sense why there's more fiber in one than the other. To make juice, you take the orange and you squeeze it, you get all the juice out, and then what are you holding in your hand at that point? You're holding the fiber, right? And we would throw it away. So that's the importance of the whole fruit. So you guys understand that. Okay. Just like fiber was important for sugar management, we should also talk about exercise and why that's important in the big picture here. So number 1, Exercise allows more efficient release of energy from the food that we eat. Okay? Mitochondria. This is a term I'll throw out here, and I want you to know that the mitochondria in your body, it's like a factory. This is the place that all the energy gets burned up. And this is where you get your energy from. So what exercise does, it clears out all the old mitochondria, the old factories, and it lets your body create new ones that work better. That's important for the energy in your body, for your metabolism. Okay. Exercise will also reduce stress. It does that in a couple different ways. One is to regulate cortisol in your body. You may have heard of cortisol before. It is they call it the stress hormone. Okay, so exercise goes a long way towards helping to control that. It also will release endorphins, and that's a substance that's in your nervous system, and it can help with pain. It can help with stress. You know, a runner's high and an endorphin. Sometimes you hear those terms used. Okay, exercise can also improve organ function. And in the example here, we're looking at the liver. So what happens is exercise makes it so you don't lose so much energy from your mitochondria, because that energy loss turns into liver fat. And fatty liver is a big problem for a lot of people. So the exercise can help with that as well. And for fatty liver disease, the gold standard of treatment is exercise is a big part of that. And this is why. Exercise also promotes bowel regularity. And I don't have to underscore, how important that is for us. But also remember that your critters that live in your gut, the microbiota, that's important for them too. So keep that in mind. Okay, how much exercise is enough? So according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, they would like you to do 150 minutes of moderate aerobic exercise per week. So in everyday terms, what does that actually mean? What am I actually going to be doing through a week? You can hit that. You can hit the mark with 30-minute walks 5 days a week, just a half an hour. And if that's still too much of a time commitment all at once, why don't you break it up? So break it up across the day. And we've got a 10-minute walk in the morning, 10-minute walk at lunch, and 10 minutes walking in the evening. You got up to 30 minutes. You did it. And also don't forget, it's good to do some strength training or some resistance training. And they recommend doing that 2 times a week at least. And that also has benefits, all the benefits we've already spoken about here. Okay, so now we'll do a little bit more of a targeted look at nutrition labels and talk about what to be looking for and what can be helpful. So for starters, if somebody caught me in the elevator and said, Matt, what's healthy eating? How do I do it? And I just had to get it down to bullet points. Then this is probably what I would recommend to somebody. If you're looking to make changes that have the biggest health impact for you, this is a great place to start. Okay. For starters, we're looking at beverages, things you drink. Keep them to 5 calories or less, but you always get a free pass for unflavored milk. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, when we're talking about foods, and especially processed foods, it becomes important to look at the label and make sure you know what you're dealing with. A good first tip is to look for 3 grams of fiber per serving. In the middle of this presentation, I spoke so much about fiber and what it does for your body. If you look at the nutrition label and you see 3 grams of fiber per serving, you hit the mark. You got it. That's either a whole wheat product or whatever's in it is very supportive in terms of the fiber. Also, I want you to watch out for this term they use. It's called partially hydrogenated. I have it down here in quotation marks. But on a label, that means trans fat. Okay, trans fat is a type of fat that there's research that shows that it's very hard on your cardiovascular system. It's one of those things that if you can avoid it in your diet, there are some definite health benefits that you can get. So be watching for this term, partially hydrogenated. Also, the third bullet, this one's a little harder. It says avoid any form of sugar in the first 3 ingredients. Okay, they have to list ingredients on a label by predominance. That means that the first ingredient that they list is the ingredient with the most percentage in that product. So if sugar is not one of the first 3 ingredients, you know you've got yourself a product that's very controlled as far as the amount of sugar that's in it. Now, where that advice gets hard is once you look at the details and you realize how many words for sugar, they use a lot of terms to maybe hide the fact that something is sugar. So it takes a little practice to be able to recognize, okay, that's sugar. They just are calling it by a different name. Rice syrup, they'll use these terms but it basically means sugar. Okay, let's look at some specific types of products, and we can evaluate these together and see what is to be looked for here. So for this first one, we're looking at 2 brands of bread. You can buy these in most grocery stores, and this happens to be a brand that sells a 100% whole wheat version and a white bread version. And this should kind of remind you of what you saw with the oranges and the orange juice. You remember the difference between whole fruit and juice is mostly the fiber that's in it, and that's exactly true of bread as well. A whole wheat bread, a true whole wheat bread, will have more fiber than a white bread does. And there's a lot of breads out there that say they're wheat on the label, but what I want you to do is flip to the nutrition label, and you're looking for, now remember, 3 grams of fiber is the best. Here's one that's got 2. That's okay. That's getting close to it. But make sure that it's got some dietary fiber on the label. That's an excellent way to evaluate your bread. Okay, now we're going to look at some different cookies that you could buy in the store. And between a Chips Ahoy chocolate chip and Kashi oatmeal dark chocolate, and between these 2, again, it comes down to the fiber. So oatmeal is one of those food ingredients that, just by the nature of it, tends to have more fiber than flour or some other products. So if you've got a cookie that's an oatmeal cookie, it's not surprising to flip to the label and you see how it's got more fiber in this case. Frozen treats. I have to laugh when I put this slide up because I gave this presentation here in Orville to an audience in our community room, and after the presentation, a lady came up to me. She was super nice, and she said, yeah, I'm the owner of Dairy Queen here in Orville. I'm like, oh, so I apologize if anybody works for a soda company or Dairy Queen or one of these places, but I'm not trying to pick on Dairy Queen, but I just want to show you how surprising this could be sometimes. So what you see here is this Yasso brand vanilla yogurt bar that you can get in a grocery store, and a Dairy Queen small vanilla cone. So comparing these 2, it may be surprising to realize that a small cone from Dairy Queen has almost 30 grams of sugar on board. Because you might think to yourself, I could have got a medium, I could have got a large, but I got the small, so I'm probably okay. But this is just to let you know, sometimes the small version of something still has a fair amount of sugar in it, maybe more than you'd want to be having at once. So I present this yogurt bar as something that could be an alternative. It's portion controlled and would still be a nice frozen treat for somebody. Okay. So the American Heart Association has some guidelines out about how much sugar we as Americans should be eating in a day. So with this graphic that I've created here, what I've done is we've got all these different beverages listed, but it's 20 ounces, for each of these, so that we can compare them all very easily. And we've got 2 colored lines right through the chart. I'll try to use my pointer and show. So we've got a red line right here, and we've got a blue line right here. And I'll tell you what those mean here. So the American Heart Association, they recommend that women eat no more than 6 teaspoons of sugar in a day. And that would be this red line. So, and for men, that recommendation is 9 teaspoons, and that's this blue line here. So every sugar cube that you see listed for a product means that that's an extra teaspoon that would be in the product. Now, some of these may not be too surprising. Soda, we know that that's something that tends to be higher in sugar. So you can see that in a 20-ounce Coke, considering a 20-ounce bottle, that would be 16 teaspoons of sugar. And you can see how that compares to the recommendation for women in a day and the recommendation for men in a day. Okay. Also, a Red Bull is 16. And orange juice can be this is pretty surprising. Now, keep in mind, this is a 20-ounce orange juice, so this would be a pretty large bottle of orange juice. But that's almost as much sugar on board as what you would get with the soda. So it's one of those things to remember. You think juice, juice is from fruit, it's healthy, but I want you to be aware of the amount of sugar that would be in that juice. It's really important that you know that. Gatorade, a sports drink, these types of drinks, still a fair amount of sugar in those. You can see how they compare. And Snapple, so like a sweetened tea, and there's some sugar in that as well. Towards the bottom, I included some choices that might be alternatives to some of these sugar sweetened beverages. Water, obviously, none. Coconut water, broth, green tea. If you like those things, you can see that the amount of sugar that's in them is less than some of these other sugar sweetened beverages that we have towards the top. Okay, so after having said all that, told you guys about fiber, exercise, looked at nutrition labels. Let's wrap it all together here. The bottom line: less sugar, more fiber, more exercise. That's something that we can do and make a difference for our health. All right, some references, and here's my contact information. If you would like a version of the slides so you can review them for yourself, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And I greatly appreciate your guys' attention today.